Here we go. Go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Grace Between Races. This is our second gathering, and welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you here this evening. We just want you to relax and have a really good time, going through this process. So the first thing we will do is I'll go through the intro and just explain a little bit about the mission, which is to hold raw, honest conversations about race issues and race reconciliation, where we can express our experiences both individually and in society. Our intention is to look at ways in which we can create change, the kind of change that our future generations will live in harmony, not only with one another, but with Mother Earth as a whole. Understanding the oneness of all things. And so right now, I would like us to just relax and take some deep breaths. We're gonna synchronize our breath with Mother Earth rhythm. And that is breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 2, and exhale for a count of 4. So that's 4, 2, 4. So we'll breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 2, and exhale for a count of 4. And we could do this a couple of times, okay? Hold for a count of 4, for a count of 2, sorry, and then exhale for a count of 4. One more time. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 2. Exhale for a count of 4. Wonderful. How is everybody feeling? Can I get some hippie hands? Oh, laughter heals.
That's right.
So yes, so what we're gonna do is, continue a little bit with the guidelines. We have a little bit of a guideline to follow, which is, to have harmony, our own, just get this together here. Okay, so we are here, the guidelines would be to, this gathering is all inclusive. We need to speak from the heart, to harmonize our own and others' truth, and to be mindful of time, and to welcome everybody with feedback and gratitude, and of course to have some lightness with this topic, so we could celebrate our risk-taking and sharing and all of that. So that's basically the guidelines. It's not too complicated. And today we are having our guest is Kelvin Young, who is a sound healer. I can't wait to hear from him. I really am looking forward to this. I always wanted to play, to learn how to use that instrument, but I never got around to it. So it would be interesting to hear how you came about to, connecting with that instrument. But before I pass it on to Hillary to introduce you to everybody, I would just like to touch on some questions that came about last 2 weeks from JWOW, being our guest here. So I had a little bit of time to contemplate what was asked, and some questions that came up was, how could people be of help in the community with, just, well, Jewel brought up the aspect of anchoring the bridge and how we could, use that before we make that attempt of crossing. So that was one of the questions. The other one was on self-care that I remember. And the last one, because I'm doing three, the last one was about fear of non-existence as far as white people are concerned. So for me, what came up strongly was the compassion regarding how can we anchor ourselves. Compassion is really, for me, deeply connected with, going within and living from purpose, and when we connect with that inner truth of who we are, then we are able to connect with others from that space. That's that space of connectedness, of oneness, rather than seeing ourselves as necessarily black or white. That's where the whole too much identification with the physical form causes a lot of disharmony, as we all know, because we all have experience with what that is. But when we go beneath that, well, within ourselves, and we connect to the oneness of who we are, we realize that there isn't such thing as you and me. There is no separation, on that level. We are all one. We are coming from the one source. We are, we are existing. Without me, you cannot exist, and without you, I cannot exist. And so from that perspective, we understand that there's compassion, because if I hurt you and I look at you as different from me, then in that sense, then there would be preferences, there will be division, there will be, and all of the great sages and all of, the ancient holy people were all pointing us towards that oneness, And so it's up to us today to take that and to kind of carry it further if we choose, right? As far as self-care is concerned, it's coming from living with purpose, because when one loves oneself, it's impossible to harm another or another thing, because once you see yourself as caring, I mean, if you love yourself, you care for yourself in the first place, you would do what it takes to preserve yourself, including, and that includes all the things with food and nutrition and all the physical things, but it goes even deeper than that. I mean, we could go into nature, we could, balance all of those things, but it starts with the self, and for me, that is what self-care boils down to, is you cannot give what you don't have. You have to come from that space of self-love, self-care. It's impossible for me to not love myself and love somebody else. It really is, And so that was the second question. And the last one had to do with fear of non-existent. Well, non-existent have to do with from my perspective, have to do with the attachment to identification with the ego, and especially the wounded ego. Once we identify heavily with the flesh, we kind of see things kind of in a delusional way. at the bottom of all of that, we see that existence, the universe, we exist, the universe, if we don't exist, the universe would not be able to exist at the same time. It's almost like if we look at a chair or we look at a tree or something, we could say, I could tell myself, well, I am separate from that thing. But it all boils back down to, I eat plant. I am getting nutrients from the sun. So the sun, the plant are all part of who I am. It's the chair is not just the chair that we sit on. It's also coming from a tree. So when we look at one thing, we could see just that one thing. But when we look at it from another perspective, we could see that that chair consists of everything in it, in the universe, you know. So it all boils down to the fact that there's no non-existence and existence. Birth and death is just a kind of an illusion, you know, that kind of work with the ego. But existence is universal, and you can't not exist if you here. Once you're here permanent, we are here permanent. The soul of you and I are permanent, meaning that it had no beginning and it had no end. And understanding that basic fact, that fear of non-existence, it gets neutralized, because then we see that because I am, everything else is. And so therefore, there is no non-existence really at the end of the day, you know. The only thing is what we're talking about when we think conceptually of non-existence, we're talking about just physical form. And that's my answer for the 3 questions. So I will, if anybody, I mean, like Hillary, you have anything to add to those questions, you could come along, but and take it from here to introduce Kelvin, and so we could move on with the gathering. But thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, it was a really amazing and full conversation. So I'm really impressed that you were able to kind of wrap it around in some way and to share from your own perspective. It's like a Dharma talk that you just gave us. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was amazing. So welcome all who are just joining on, Alexa. And so I want to introduce part of the practice that we're using tonight and still practicing and trying out is using a talking stick as a way to honor the Native and Indigenous practice in this land, and has been given to me by a number of teachers, specifically, most recently, Strong Oak, who's a Native elder in the area where I live, who does a training on council practice called Walking in Balance. And I really recommend looking into her. Also, she has an organization called the Visioning Bear Intertribal Coalition, and she travels around to all different places and teaches this training, which I highly recommend if you want to hold space in circles for reconciliation specifically. So there will be a talking stick that comes up as we begin our sacred sharing time, which in a sense, we've already begun, but we'll have for this particular container with Kelvin. I'll put that up for him to start. And then Anne and I will share a little bit, and then we'll invite Kelvin to close off that container, and then we'll bring it back up and invite you all to ask your questions and offer reflections as well. So, okay, so the next piece is I want to invite us to create this sacred space with our ancestors. So I invite you to close your eyes, and we'll honor the ancestors who are aligned with this work to be with us right now and to support us as we bring all of us together, and honoring our guides and guardians and benefactors to be with us and to offer their support to this work of reconciliation. Breathing that in and breathing out. And also honoring the native people, the indigenous people of this land where I am, the Adawa and the Anishinaabe Bewaki. And I invite you to call in the native people of the places where you are, if you know their names, to say those names, and if you don't know their names, to hold space for them. May their wisdom be honored and may it flourish. And I invite you now into a guided grounding meditation, and to feel your sits bones wherever you are and find a comfortable position. Get cozy. You can move around a little bit, move your spine, just work out a little bit of the kinks so that we can sit and be conscious and present with each other. Maybe you want to roll your head a little bit, roll your shoulders back. Stretch your arms. Create sacred space for yourself, within yourself. And as you settle down, to once again feel your feet on the ground and your sits bones wherever you're sitting, and to feel the bones of your pelvis. Feel their solidity, and to take in the sound that Kelvin is creating for us into our bones with our breath. And to feel us growing roots into the earth from our sits bone. Breathing out those roots into the ground beneath us. And breathing in nourishment from those roots, from the earth. And letting go anything that is no longer helpful for us, letting it go into the earth through these roots. As you breathe in nourishment and breathe out, and grow your roots down. One more breath there. And then I invite you to bring your attention up into your belly, into your guts. And you can bring your hands there if that supports you. Feel the watery flow in this part of your body. And you can move around if you'd like. Move your hips, your chest, to feel into this area of water where we feel our emotions as you continue breathing. And letting go of anything that is no longer helpful. Letting it go down the roots. And breathing in from the earth, bringing in nourishment in our guts, into our belly. Seeing if we can feel as if we belong, as if we are held and supported. And then I invite you to bring your attention up to your heart. And to bring your hands up there if that supports you. And to breathe in to your heart, into your lungs, feeling your chest expanding and hugging your heart. And then breathing out down into the earth once again. And feeling the fire of your heart as you breathe in. This fiery passion and motivation. Breathing in that fire and breathing out whatever you want to let go of into the earth. Noticing if you feel your chest, your heart expanding and opening. Becoming more receptive and available. And I invite you to also bring your attention up to your head while staying present with your heart. And notice the energy of coming up to your head and what that's like. Especially behind your third eye, which is right between your eyebrows, about an inch back. This place of our intuition and insight. And breathing into that place. And one more breath in. And out into the earth. And when you're ready, feeling your entire being, to whatever extent you're able to, I invite you to open your eyes and join everyone else. So thank you. And thank you, Kelvin.
Very welcome.
And thanks to Ridge the dog for see how that goes. So I just want to invite us to go around and to say our name, and if there's one intention that we're bringing today, if we can put that into a phrase, a few words, and to call ourselves present together. So I'll share. My name's Hillary, and my intention is to hold presence. And I'll go, my parents.
My name is Diane, and my intention is not to be too bothered by the
dog.
My name is John, and I wish I wasn't bothered by the dog.
So I'm not sure how to do this, but we could go Baja Popcorn or Anne if you want to go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Anne, and my intention is to, bring in infinite, open up the space for infinite possibilities.
My name is Jerry, and the word that I'm bringing tonight is expansion.
I'm Stephanie, and I want to be a really good listener this evening.
Thank you.
My name's Alexa, and the intention I'm bringing is humility and learning.
Beautiful.
My name is Cassie, and just opening to all possibilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jesse. Pardon my foggy appearance. I guess my intention is simply just to listen.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
My name is Alyssa, and I am really sitting with receptivity.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Kelvin, do you want to share?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kelvin. And it's just an honor and pleasure once again to be here with each and every one of you. And tonight, my intention is to bring authenticity.
Oh, marvelous.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So, I just want to introduce Kelvin at this moment and say thank you so much for being so generous and willing to come and join us and do this.
Thank you, Hillary.
You're a dear friend and guide, and yeah, I really feel like a mentor, even though we haven't known each other that long. I just see how you build bridges in the community and how you grow up
Thank you.
authentically and deeply and with integrity, and
Thank you so much.
You're so welcoming to so many people.
Thank you.
Opened your arms completely to me, and I've seen you do that for years since I met you.
Thank you so much.
Kelvin has built is massive. Is all over Connecticut and Massachusetts and New England, and I'm sure many other places. And he has a lot to share with us from his life experience and direct experience of being affected by the war on drugs, which has been a war on people of color, and also the racial disparity in the recovery community as well, and how he's helping to bring connection through his holistic sound practice to these people, to offer that and to build bridges for other holistic practices and other holistic healing for people of color in their communities. And also he's very involved in white communities as well. And I don't know so many people who would consistently show up as regularly to so many events as Kelvin. I'm like, and he's here. And things that day and led multiple events generally. And so he's just an amazing source of energy and wisdom. And I can only imagine that from the journey that he's been on. So I'll just put up
Your sound is a little bit off and on, Hillary.
Is it? Okay. Well, hopefully we won't need to hear me so much anymore. So, but I'm gonna put up the talking stick and then invite Kelvin to share anything you'd like to share with us from your experience.
Sure.
Yeah. So hold on just a moment.
Okay. Yes.
All right, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hillary and Ian, both of you, for inviting me to be here tonight. And thank each and every one of you again for being here and for taking your time out of your schedule to connect with all of us here tonight. And it's a pleasure and honor to share my experience, strength, and hope in life and recovery and different experiences I endured um, throughout my lifetime. And once again, my name is Kelvin Young, and I'm a sound practitioner, and I have an opportunity to learn about sound healing and offer different sound healing sessions to different people from all walks of life. It became a passion of mine. I'm also a holistic stress management coach and instructor, which I teach people how to identify their stress and their stress levels and how stress affects the human body and the mind and the heart, and learn healthy ways to deal with our high stress levels and what that entails for us. I'm also an addiction recovery coach, which I work with people from all walks of life to deal with different addictive states they may be experiencing. But most importantly for me, I'm a person in recovery, which means I haven't used alcohol or any other drug since March 6, 2009. And after many years of battling with depression, anxiety, and drug addiction, I found freedom from alcohol, from marijuana, from cocaine, from heroin, from prescription opiates like Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets. And I began my healing process in a drug treatment program within prison. And it was within this prison program I learned about the transformative powers of yoga, meditation, creative expressive arts like poetry and journaling. And to be honest with all of you, I had a lot of misconceptions about yoga, meditation, and different other practices because I didn't see people that looked like me. I didn't see people of color practicing these modalities. So I didn't think it was for me, you know. And I honestly thought that yoga was for rich white women, you know, because it's the way it's marketed here, particularly in the United States. So I didn't think it was for me. But I know the things I was doing prior to going to prison, it wasn't working for me no more. So I had to try something new. I had to try something different. So I had to step out of my comfort zone. And by utilizing meditation, utilizing yoga practice as a vehicle to go within, because I truly do believe that healing begins from within, I was able to find a sense of calmness and inner peace, being in a very hostile and restrictive environment such as prison. But most importantly, I was able to understand the root causes of my experiences with addiction. And that was a powerful, powerful learning experience for me. And I learned that, you know, it was the unhealed, the unprocessed emotional pain. It was the toxic chronic stress. It was the trauma that I experienced in my life was at the root of my addiction. So basically, I was looking for a sense of relief from that stress. And you know what? I found it in alcohol. I found it in marijuana. I found it in cocaine. I found it in heroin and prescription opiates. And it worked for a while. You know, I'm a naturally an introvert. So when I drank, I become more open. You know, I was more sociable. At least I thought. And when I did heroin, I could just literally feel all the stresses, all the worries, all the pain leaving my body. When I did cocaine, it gave me the energy, you know, and all these different drugs that I did, it served a purpose for me. And so, you know, drugs people have been using drugs since just the beginning of time. So drugs will always be around, you know, but when we understand not necessarily their addiction, but what are these drugs doing for the individual? And for me, it was doing me a service for a while. It was helping me to relieve the emotional distress that I was experiencing in my life, the pain, the toxic chronic stress that I experienced. So like I said, these drugs worked for a while for me until it didn't work. And I got caught up in a very, very vicious cycle of addiction. And I wasn't able to see the addictive state that I was in, but my loved ones, my family, my friends, the people that cared about me was able to see that because they was on the outside looking in. So they seen the destructive behavior and the patterns that I was displaying in my life, but I wasn't able to see it. And perhaps subconsciously I didn't want to see it, but it was there nonetheless. And it was when I went to prison, I was able to kind of like sit back and process all that. And I've been in and out of prison a few times, and my fourth prison sentence, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and for me, my main source, my main inspiration was my daughter. She was growing up without her father, seeing her father in and out of prison, seeing her father physically, emotionally, financially abusive, seeing me very destructive behavior. Um, so, just sitting in my bunk bed, I remember just laying there, and I decided to make some necessary changes in my life to be the man that my daughter could look up to and be proud of. So I took advantage of every single program while I was incarcerated. But that program that really helped me the most, that really helped me to begin the inner journey, the inner healing, was that drug treatment program. And being in that program, that's where I learned about the meditation and yoga and how I incorporate it into my life. I was able to understand the process of addiction and addictive states and what that means. But mainly, I was able to connect with myself, and have an opportunity to be in prison. I called it divine intervention because I was taken out of my element, so to speak, and put in a place where I had the opportunity, the potential to do the work I needed to do in order to begin my healing process. And I took advantage of that opportunity to begin that healing process by going within and looking within and learning these different practices of meditation. I was able to connect with those raw human emotions that I suppressed for many, many, many years with alcohol and other drugs. And I'll be honest with you again, there was so much drugs in prison as well too. There's a lot of drugs in prison. But I chose not to use any drug in prison because I had a dedication. I was on a mission to really change my life, and my daughter was that inspiration for me. So I had opportunity just to feel my emotions because I believe it's important for us to feel before we heal. And I had an opportunity to do just that, and utilizing meditation as that vehicle to go within to begin that process was so healing for me. And there was a poem that I wrote while I was in prison because I learned about expressive arts and poetry while incarcerated, and able to express my raw human emotions, the emotions that I suppressed, those uncomfortable emotions that I suppressed for many years, and able to process them, having them to come to the surface, having myself to acknowledge those emotions that they were there, and help me to feel those emotions and to process those emotions and turn those emotions, integrate them or transmute them into wisdom, into truth, into knowledge. And I was able to express that in the form of poetry. And I love to share a poem that I wrote while I was in prison. And it was so therapeutic for me then, and it's still therapeutic for me now to recite this poem and to share it with myself and to other people as well. And the name of this poem is called Eyes of a Silent Sun. Look into my eyes and tell me what you see. Is it a lost soul with no control, trying to be free? As I look into the mirror and stare into my eyes, I see all the anger and self-hate, hypocrisy and lies. I see resentment, frustration, embarrassment, and pain. I see jail bars and fancy cars as I cruise down memory lane. I see the feelings I repressed going back to childhood. I need to let go of those feelings. I would if I could. I see the hurt that I caused to the ones I love the most. I see my brother on his wedding day as we celebrate with a toast. I see the good and bad times that I experienced in my life, but it's so hard to let go of all that bitterness and strife. There's a sense of sadness when you look into my eyes, like the ones you see when a close relative dies. But this death is not physical, it has to do with the soul. It's that morbid feeling we get when our spiritual energy is low. It's like nothing matters anymore, like that day when I was fired, feeling depressed and weak. Can't sleep, but I'm so tired. I'm tired of all the pain, the hurt, and the rain, from the cloud that keeps following me. Sometimes I think I'm insane. But when I look out the window and see the beauty of the lake, it reminds me of good times like when I was 9 and things were fine. And with the sunrise, I can feel the presence of the Creator. When I look out my window, I see me in the beauty of nature. I'm a part of God's creation, nature, and humanity. The love and spirit that's in Jesus is also in me. So I learned to love myself and others just for who we are. I learned all about this love looking out my window with jail bars. And for me, I learned about love in a very unusual place, in prison. Because like I said before, I felt it was divine intervention and I had an opportunity to do the inner work I needed to do in order to begin my healing process. And once I was able to utilize meditation as a vehicle to go within, I was able to see the shame and the guilt that keeps a lot of us in active addiction. And once I was able to move past that, the shame and past the guilt, I was able to move even deeper into the essence of who I am, the essence that each and every one of you are, the essence of love. And I look at love as a state of being, a force, an energy, if you will. And behind all the poor choices and the negative experiences, the so-called negative experiences I endured in my life, I know I'm still worthy of love because I am love. And once I was able to see myself, knowing that the same essence, the creative force, divine intelligence that created the sun, the moon, stars, you and me, it created all of us. So that helped me to shift my perspective from a victim mentality. Oh, I'm an addict. I'm alcoholic. I'm a convicted felon. I'm a high school dropout. More into empowered co-creator mentality. I'm a person, a spiritual human being that have been through different experiences in my life, and I had an opportunity to learn and grow and evolve from my experiences. And I truly do believe that life is about learning, growing, and evolving. You know, I learned from my so-called negative experiences in my life, and I've grown mentally, emotionally, and spiritually from the knowledge I obtained from that. And that knowledge allowed my consciousness to evolve. So as a result, I became more consciously aware of the choices I make in my life. And today I sustain my health and my recovery by eating a plant-based diet because I believe what we consume in our body does affect our mental, emotional well-being. I practice sound healing on a consistent daily basis, spend quality time in the beauty of nature, different types of body movement, like ecstatic dance, like qigong, different ways to move my body, to get the energy flowing, moving in grace, and all these different opportunities I have to move my body in a very positive and healthy way. And uplifting, relaxing music, and really spending quality time with the people in my life now. Because I truly do believe that connection is the cure for feelings of isolation and loneliness and different other types of emotional distresses that we experience in this human existence. And for me, dealing in addictive states, I understand it wasn't necessarily about the alcohol and drugs because there's different things to be addicted to. But it was the emptiness inside, the lack of connection I felt, not only to other people, but to myself, you know, to the divine essence of who I am. So that connection was always there, but I was able to feel it. I was able to see that. So once I was able to shift my perspective and connect to that divine essence and move past the shame and the guilt and understand that connection was always there, I was able to see myself in a whole different light. And it just made me think, like, how can we truly appreciate the sunshine without experiencing the rain? How can we truly appreciate the good times in our life without experiencing the so-called bad times in our life? And, you know, I look at a beautiful rose, flowers. It needs both the sunshine and the rain in order to grow. And I look at like that as us human beings as well, spiritual human beings. We need both the positive and the so-called negative experience for us to grow in our life. So all these experiences I went through with addiction and incarceration, I'm grateful for. Because without those experiences, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. And have an opportunity to learn all this wisdom and gave me the passion and desire and the knowledge and the wisdom and understanding to really take these holistic practices I learned while incarcerated. And once I was released, to really dive deep into these practices of meditation, of sound healing, and have an opportunity to really grow my practice personally and professionally. And once I was able to receive training, and I have a few teachers what I'm so grateful for, the opportunity for me to dive deeper into sound therapy and sound healing and have my lived experience, I wanted to bring these holistic modalities to different systems of care, people that are experiencing addictive states or emotional distress, and have an opportunity to serve on the board of directors with Advocacy Unlimited. And with Darian Drum, I'm grateful for his guidance and mentorship, where I have an opportunity to be co-founder of a place in Hartford, Connecticut called Toivo. And when I stepped down from the board and Darren had his desire to create a space where people from all walks of life can come together and don't have to worry about funds and money, but come together and really work on their inner health, their inner being, and really connect with themselves. For people that experience emotional distress and addictive states, to come together and leave all that at the door. You know, all the labels and diagnoses, leave that at the door and come in as a spiritual human being, a beautiful spiritual human being that you are, and learn these different mind-body practices to connect you back into your body, back into your heart, and back into who you truly are. And have an opportunity to do that, work with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and different other state agencies, and really having that passion to bring these different holistic modalities to different systems of care. Because no one should be denied the benefits of yoga, meditation, or sound healing, or any other holistic practices based on socioeconomic standing or psychiatric histories or experiences with addiction. We all could benefit from these different modalities. And like I said before, you know, I thought that these practices wasn't for me because I didn't see people of color doing these things. And, you know, we have a lot of misconception, including myself. I had a lot of misconceptions about these practices. You know, and I believe in different communities of color, there, even though it's starting to shift, we do have these different belief systems about yoga, about meditation, and somewhere down the line, you know, there's a misconception that it's, lack of a better word, devil's work or evil, or you could get possessed by different entities and everything. But when I think about that, and I think about how alcohol, you know, how our poisonous and how I put so many different spirits in alcohol in my body. And we ever wonder why, you know, these package stores or liquor stores are called spirit shops? Because there's spirits, I believe there's spirits in liquor and alcohol. And because for me, I became a different person when I was under the influence of alcohol and other drugs. And it consumed me. And when I blacked out, I was totally consumed. And once I was able to see that and see how alcohol was I was being possessed by alcohol, because I do things and say things that I wouldn't remember. I will forget because I'm in a drunken state. And it was a scary moments at times where I don't know how I got home or what I've done, because I totally black out. And I feel that it's almost like a possession in a way. And so just being mindful of that, how I was, and just the misconceptions that people have about these modalities, and move past all these different things, and how do we connect back to ourselves? How do we reduce our stress levels? How we connect back to our heart and get out of our head, get out of our egos, and connect back to our hearts. And these different modalities have the potential to do just that. And having a passion to bring these different modalities to different communities of colors. And I believe, first of all, it's important for us to put our face and voice to, show different show people, communities of color, that there's many different holistic practitioners, that's people of color that's doing this. You know, it's not just for Caucasian people. It's not just for a certain group of people, a certain class of people. This is for human beings to connect with themselves, connect back to their hearts, and connect back to their bodies, because we're so disconnected to our being. So, so from all these lived experience, I just had that passion, and now I have my own private practice in Hartford, Connecticut, where I bring sound therapy for different people from all walks of life, from schools. I just got a contract with the Department of Corrections to bring holistic therapies such as sound healing to the juvenile detention center, Manson Youth in Connecticut, and having a passion to do that. Work with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, work with different private nonprofits and mental health and addiction agencies, people from all walks of life to benefit from these different modalities. And it's because of my experiences in prison, my experiences with addiction, that I'm doing this work. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm able to share that experience, that strength and hope to other people that may be walking in that, going through their dark night of the soul, like I experienced in my life, and be a little beacon of light. Be that guide or support Because we all need that support on our healing journey, and I still receive that support on my healing journey. And we're social beings, and we thrive in community and connection, and just a passion of mine just to really bring this to different communities, but a desire and a passion to really bring demystify these practices and put a face and voice to holistic practices in the community of color, and to get more people to connect with themselves, because whatever religious avenue we may take. Personally, I believe, and I grew up in a very, very religious family, we need more than just Jesus, and we just want to take it to Jesus. A lot of stuff we just kept in our household. We don't want to talk about it, but we need to connect back with ourselves, or the ways that we express or deal with the stress or deal with the trauma that's in our life is we drank, we use drugs, and for a lot of people that serve a temporary solution, but it ended up causing even more problems further down the line. So how do we deal with these emotional distress and raw human emotion that dwells within us, instead of expressing it in a way that we're conditioned as men to express it through anger. And a lot of time that anger is expressed to the people that love us the most in our community, which is each other. And we have a lot of crimes against one another because we have so much anger that's bottled up inside of us, and it needs to be expressed. That energy needs to be released. And how do we release that? Through different body movements. How do we release that? Through yoga. How do we release that? Through sound therapy, through Reiki, through different holistic practices, Qigong, different ways to just really move that energy out and really open us up and open our hearts up as well too. Does anyone have any questions or?
Well, thank you so much, Kelvin, for this initial sharing. And Anne, do you want to share from here? Oh, you're on mute, Anne, so we can't hear you. Well, you're still on mute. There we go.
Okay. That was so beautiful, Kevin. I am so grateful and thankful for your light. And
thank you. Yeah.
That was awesome. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters myself. And, this drug issue it's over everywhere. I mean, it's so overwhelming.
That's right.
We don't even know where to start sometimes and where it will finish, So, but just having somebody who have had the experience and who come out on the other side and could talk in such a way, and especially for younger people who think that parents, they always talk too much and they don't understand.
Yeah.
So just hearing it coming from a person who have had the experience and then able to talk about it in such a feeling way, coming from the heart, it's so profound.
Thank you.
And beautiful. And I totally agree with you that our experiences really shape us, but we could use our experiences as a stepping stone or as a stumbling block. And bravo
That's right.
to you for using it as a stepping stone.
Thank you so much.
One of the biggest problem, and I live here in Montreal in Canada, in Quebec City, one of the big issues I see here is people not being aware of when we talk about yes, and there is a disconnect, and we know a big part of that disconnect with having to come into holistic kind of lifestyle. It has to do with, to me, it has to do with religion, and
that's right.
How we was taught to look outside ourselves for something to save us rather than going within ourselves. And this is a big shift for a lot of people from our community is the fact
Mhm.
that we want educated that way religiously. I'm speaking,
That's right. You're right.
and so we're still looking for something outside ourselves. And a lot of the younger people that I'm in contact with, they're clueless,
Mhm.
so they don't. So it's how to bring that awareness, for them to understand that we are energetic beings,
That's right.
and energy have a way. When you watch how energy works, you will know that it needs to move. If it
Mhm.
stays contained, then it's gonna pop.
That's right.
And that's where diseases and all this crazy business happens. So
Mhm.
um, I personally am trying to set the example based on my own lifestyle, because my own process took me to Kundalini yoga, which is way out there,
Yes.
which is really, really way out there.
Oh, I
Because
love Kundalini yoga.
yes, me. So
Yes.
when I started my journey,
Mhm.
I have been through a lot of stuff, a lot of trauma, a lot of
Mhm.
stuff. But my mission was always to keep on my purpose. I have some values that I set very early o'clock, and I live by those values. And one of
Mhm.
it is to keep an open mind,
Yes.
and so that I could learn new things. And so when I was confronted with a lot of stress,
Mhm.
uh, I went in search of something, and what came very, very easy for me, like this was really surprising for even myself. I got into yoga, Kundalini yoga, and all of that, but I found that the information was very easy for me to grasp. Like it wasn't.
Mhm.
It almost like if this was my calling, like I'm on the right path, because I've met people who said, oh, those things, it's so hard, like I can't get it, like I read it and it's like way out there, and
Mhm.
but for whatever reason, it just worked with or maybe I was ready, I was
Yeah.
ready, so what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to set the example based on how I live my life.
That's right.
So, I mean, of course, living with purpose, it includes giving to the community and finding ways where you could reach out and help. I'm still in
Mhm.
that process, but at
Mhm.
the same time, what I'm saying is for my own immediate surrounding, I'm trying to set the example rather than just talk, because talk have a way of getting in the way sometimes.
Mhm.
And so for me right now is just let them see the
Mhm.
course from where I am, where I was to where I'm going, let it show, let it reflect, and so this is how I'm taking it. But I'm really, really happy about not your experience with it, but the way you handled the whole process,
Thank you.
and it's just a beautiful way. And by the way, your poem was magnificent. I love
Oh, thank
poetry
you.
myself,
Thank you, Ann.
and it was very touching. And
Mhm.
keep up the good work, brother.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Ann. Thank you for your words of wisdom. And, you touch on many things, about, me growing up in a very religious, my father is a pastor, my brother's a pastor, uncle. So I grew up in a very religious um, family and very strict and religious. And a lot of my childhood trauma stems from that,
Right.
and how we looked at certain holistic practices. It just wasn't something that we did. It was, we always just have to pray about it, or or just kind of keep it within the family. So we never had opportunities to talk about that. So, but it's being an example. I've learned, like you said, is just being an example of our actions speak louder than our words. So being that example for people to see, and people become curious about this person is different, and even the people that I've known in the past, during my criminal activities and my behaviors and that street life, how they knew me then, and how wild I was, until where I'm at now, and how, I strive for that sense of inner peace. And there's days when I get stressed out and overwhelmed and aggravated, and to me, I believe that's part of the human experience. But how do I handle that? And knowing that today I have healthier tools, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling off balance, it could bring me back into balance, bring me back home, back into homeostasis. And that's the key, is how we live our life and be an example for others, and not to seem like we're perfect, but how do we handle our imperfections in life? How do we accept, take responsibilities for the actions and choices that we make, and how we learn and grow from them. And to me, that's the authenticity that I speak about. And whereas, okay, we make poor choices in life, how do we learn and grow from them? Because I believe there's so much wisdom in those experiences that we go through, and it's our ego that label them as negative or positive. Right. But from a spiritual essence, to me, I believe it's just all experiences, waiting to unfold, and have so much potential to learn and grow from, and being an example for other people, putting that face and voice not only to recovery but to holistic practices, and just as a Black man, and and different racial disparities that we experience here in America, and the criminal justice system, and when I look at the war on drugs, and I remember when crack cocaine it hit back in the 80s, and how it affected my family, even to this day, how it really devastated my family, and particularly communities of color, and how Nixon and they really designed this war on drugs to really be a war out on people of color, and they started creating these different guidelines, how it was passed on for different presidents, and how, in Reagan, he expanded on it, and how it's just really how we started creating disparities on crack cocaine and regular powder cocaine, and people were getting sentenced higher prison sentence for crack cocaine, and crack cocaine was more predominantly in communities of color, whereas powder cocaine, which is all cocaine, it's a lighter sentence. And I read somewhere that the amount of crack cocaine, the sentence that person got, the amount of crack cocaine, it would take I think like 50 times that amount to equal the equivalent of powder cocaine, even though it's the same thing. And growing up, I dealing with powder cocaine, that was considered like a rich man's high, so just the disparities that was there in the prison sentences and the policies that were laid out, it was staggering, and a lot of times it was hidden in plain sight, and how it was affecting our communities, and a lot of brothers was going to prison and being a part of that prison system. And once you got that number, and I know that number will always be with me until the casket drops, so therefore I have to be very mindful of how I move in society, and practicing mindfulness and practicing meditation. I'm allowed to see the pitfalls and see the different policies that's placed to keep people separated, and not to fall into that trap, because I know regardless of how crowded the prison systems are, they always have a number in a bed for 270-014, which is my inmate number. And so I had to be mindful and just really diligent on the way I move. But just knowing how that, systems are in place to really keep us within that system once we have that number. So it's so hard once we get out and try to get a job, but, with felonies on our record, there's so much discrimination and stigma associated with people that's coming home after serving their time to try to integrate back into the community, and so many different barriers in place. And a lot of times, people feel stuck, and they feel that they need to make money to provide for their family, or provide for their loved ones and for themselves. and they end up doing the same thing that got them back in prison again. And it's like a revolving door. And I remember when the first time I went to prison in the 90s, it's during orientation, the counselor told us like 85% of us will be back, you know, and how discouraging was that to hear that, you know, especially that being my first time. And I was like, you know, I was cussing this guy out, you know, in my head, you know, I mean, like, you know, how can he say that? But for me, he was right, you know, and I went back a few more times, you know, because once I had that number, once I got caught up in that system, it was like a revolving door, you know, and once I was able to see that and kind of like, okay, this is what's happening with these different policies in place that keep in certain communities, certain people, certain races, stuck within the system, you know, and how we're feeding the system and keeping the system alive, you know. So therefore, we got to start looking at these different policies that's in place in the criminal justice system that's keeping people, particularly people of color, within the system, you know. And one of the things, you know, is really about empowering another human being to really see these pitfalls. And part of the work that I'm doing, not only providing holistic practices, but allowing people to be mindful of the pitfalls, of the policies, and other little tricks that you have once you come out. And how do you kind of like not go that route, but take this route to educate yourself, to find a trade, to find a skill, to utilize that talent, that the skills that you have. Because I remember back in, you know, when I was living that fast lifestyle, the same skills it takes to hustle any type of drug, that's all marketing, that's all business, you know. So it doesn't matter what product or service it is, whether you're selling crack cocaine or you're selling, you know, you're selling T-shirts, whatever the case may be, that's a skill. So how can we use that skill that we use for hustling drugs or hustling illegal, starting your own business? Because I see an entrepreneur, while another person may see a drug dealer. So therefore, how do we utilize the skills that we have and to use it for a way that serves us well, that serves us better, and how it can serve our communities? So just really educating people on how do we use our talents that we already have in a different light, in a different way that serves us much better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That there are so many skills that are learned on all levels of life and all experiences. And obviously you've taken your whole life, Kelvin, and you've put it into what you're doing now. In every moment you're using all those skills. And no matter if it was, you know, you were using or you were in prison, like it's all wisdom that has come from those experiences.
Right.
Yeah. So we're gonna get there. But my parents are like, I have questions.
I love it.
So I wanna get to that point of when we're opening it up, but I also just want to share and let you know, like we were watching the movie The 13th, which is about the 13th Amendment, and I really recommend that everyone watch this movie. It's about the abolition of slavery, but how it has not actually ended. Slavery has been transmuted into these other institutions, specifically the war on drugs and mass incarceration, and that it just keeps transmuting into these other institutions. And it's
so true.
Extremely moving to watch that. So just to give one little point of information, I think it's Black men are 40, oh gosh, I don't have this quite right, but it's something like 20% of the population is men of color. And that it is, sorry. Got the other way around. 6.5% of the population is men of color in the United States, and 40% of the people in prison are men, or Black men.
That's right. Men of color, yes. Yes, compared to, I believe it's 32% of white, and I believe it's 22% or something like that to Hispanic. And according to the Sentencing Project, 1 out of 3 black men in America will have to experience time in prison compared to 1 out of 17 white men here in America. And that's staggering because of the population of black men here in America, and how it just, how we make up a large percentage in the prison population. It's and there's certain policies in place, and like I said before, it seems like it's hidden in plain sight. It's just, people just might not think about it, or why this is, and how it's like, black men in particular are demonized in a way, and it seems like it's okay because of a certain illusion or a certain betrayal of black men that's being a part of this prison population. But the movie 13th is a very powerful documentary. I recommend people see that. And how you just said, Hillary, how just how the mass incarceration and slavery and how people are incarcerated, it just changed names, changed institutions, so how do we bring light to that and allow people to be mindful of what's going on and what we need to do from the grassroots level to make these necessary changes within the policies and the different systems that's in place to keep certain people oppressed.
Yeah, and that it's in the name of consumerism and materialism, because it's making so much money for actually very few people who are at the top of our economic system in our country. To have that many people in prison is making a ton of money, and those people are used as free labor, as slave labor in this country.
Yeah.
Many corporations that are in the stores, just down the street from us. So I encourage you to look into more information about, what organizations, what corporations are using labor as well, and to not use those products from those corporations as well.
That's right. Yeah. And when you think about how a lot of prison systems are coming privatized now, so therefore they need a certain amount of people in prison, for, to keep the business of their prison business going. So therefore their laws are in place to keep the prisons populated. So just being mindful of that, and it's just a system. I won't say it's broken because it was built like this. So therefore, how do we look at that in a different light?
Yeah. So I want to open this up so that other people can ask their questions, because I'm sure people have many, and and I also just want to plant the seed of sharing more ideas about how we as white people can support people of color, sharing our privilege and help bring awareness to this reality that you're speaking of, about the war on drugs and mass incarceration as well. And just to reflect that you spoke so much about how we all, all people of all races can be examples, can step into our empowerment and be the light, and speak our truth and take responsibility for our past. And when we do that, we are healing our ancestors, and we are making change just by doing that inner transformational work. And then just to share a little bit from my perspective, I wasn't motivated deeply to do this kind of work, to do the anti-oppression or the anti-racism work. I was doing workshops, I was doing trainings and things like that for many years since I've been, but I didn't feel that motivation within me. And what for me got below the surface was looking at my own stories in my family and looking at how have people of color been treated by my family, how has my family been treated by people of color, and understanding that there was a lack of compassion and a lack of relationship there. And so we build those relationships first with those ancestors within me, and to do
Yes.
that work of finding compassion and letting go of what no longer is needed, and to then find myself opening to people of color, because I took the step to intend to move out
To move that.
of white
Yes.
community and
Mm.
to build those bridges and those relationships. And because of many courageous people of color like Jay Wow, who spoke last time,
Mm-hmm.
and Anne, and you, Kelvin, who have stepped into white communities and have just been yourselves and have said, this is who I am, and I'm not going to shut myself down, and I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to be
right.
all of who I am. And I'm going to invite you into that. So I'm infinitely grateful that you have brought so much more vitality and aliveness and creativity into my life by simply just showing up and being all of you.
Thank you so much, Hillary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Deep
you.
bow to you. Thank you.
So I invite people to raise their hand. I'm going to put up the last, okay. I know that we don't want to take this moment, but I just invite us to be a little bit contemplative in this moment, just to take it all in and breathe, because it's a lot. And I'm going to put the talking stick up, and then we'll open it back up. So, Anne, if you want to share, please do. And also, if you want to pass it on to others, please do.
So I would just like to quiet down a bit and just to kind of internalize, ask everybody to hold an intention based on infinite possibilities, so that we could, what I'd like to ask everyone to do is to imagine a world in a different way, in the way that brings harmony, love, joy, peace to everyone. Because when we hold intention, it has the power to create realities. So with that in mind, can we just hold an intention of something totally different from what we all have experienced in the past and what we know to be true today? Can we just hold that for a minute and see what that looks like, feels like? Just for a few minutes. You could just imagine how the children would be, what that life would look like. What does it feel like? And take some deep breaths while you're doing it. And when you're ready, we could all open our eyes. And just as we continue, because I think, other people might have some questions. So I would like to leave space for others to ask those questions. But just hold that possibility, that image in your mind as we go along, okay? So if anybody have any questions for Kelvin, You could touch the icon, the hand icon, raise your hand, and
Okay. Yeah, you want to go ahead, Dad?
Oh, okay. Calvin, this is John.
Hey, John.
My question is, when you were fighting addiction, when you were in prison fighting addiction, was it all coming from within the correction to that, or were you getting a lot of help from outside to overcome the addiction?
I would say I was getting a lot of help from like divine, the intuitiveness of within, because how I look at the prison system is almost like a warehouse, whereas they had a few programs, they have things available, they don't, it's there available, but it's up to the individual to put the work in, to do the work, and being in that system, there's it's a very negative environment, a lot of CEOs, because they look at you as a number, as your inmate number. So they really talk down to you. They really discourage you in so many different ways. And so there was a level of disconnect from even the counselors and the CEOs and even the people there. So it's not necessarily a breeding ground for support, but I knew I needed to make some changes. So the program that was there, I had to put the energy and the effort to make it happen. And for me, it was a divine will. I guess a way to explain it. Whereas once I was able to connect with my inner, that divine intelligence that dwells within me, within each and every one of us, once I was able to connect with that and connect with the passion and the motivation to do the reading, to go to these classes and learn, what really helped me was the holistic practices, because I had to understand the root causes of my experience with addiction, because I believe addiction was just the symptoms of the root. And I learned that the root was the emotional pain, the toxic stress, the trauma that I experienced in my life. And by going within, I was able to feel that and see that. And, the workshops and the classes I took, it was helpful, it was beneficial. But it was really the inner work that really helped me to kind of like see things from a different perspective. And I owe it all to being in that prison and learning meditation and yoga. But it was really this, like the divine desire to look at a lot of the stuff that I ran from and didn't want to look at for many, many years, and how I suppressed it with alcohol and other drugs. So to really answer your question, it was really that inner drive.
You mentioned,
to make the changes.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that your father was a minister, a pastor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you get any help from him?
Support, yes. Because even when I was there, even though I had a job which paid me like 50 cents a day, but it was work. But just like the financial support was there, and emotional support when I was able to call and talk to him, because it was very restrictive, it was very lonely at times. So having that support there was needed, for my heart. And my family always was there to kind of like give me that emotional support. But I realized this was something I needed to do, almost like on my own, so to speak. I had to do this work on my own. And it was good to have their support financially, and I was able to call and talk to them and to get words of encouragement from my father and my mother and the rest of my family. But I had to do the work, and I had to find the motivation and inspiration from my daughter and other people to really do it, because it was a commitment, and I had to make that. I had to stay focused on that commitment to change, But he was certainly was emotional and financial support while I was incarcerated. And once I came home, he was even more of a bigger support for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
So I see Jerry has a hand up as well.
Kelvin,
Hey, my brother.
I just want to say thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
the sweep of your life and the journey
you.
that you've been on.
Mm.
And I just want to honor that work that you've done. And I bless you on the rest of your life and the journey
Thank
still
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Jerry.
Truly.
Thank you so much, man.
My question is that it's something that I think that we're working together on, is that once we discover yoga and meditation and we understand that the answers, lie
Lies
within,
within.
we
Yes.
want to share that with people. And it's kind of funny that here we're both connecting to a third culture entirely. This other culture from the East is informing us both here in the West,
yes,
regardless of our skin color, like
that's right,
path to the light that unifies us.
yes.
And I know that even for me, it's hard to talk to people and say to them, go to yoga class. If you haven't tried it, you really need to. It's amazing. Change your life, and it has totally changed me.
Yes.
And so, the best thing I do is try to walk that talk and just sort of
That's
like
right.
an example. And I can only imagine how much harder it is for you. As you said, there's so many people, or you didn't see many people like yourself
right
in yoga. And I'm sure that is still a persistent stereotype. And so you must get so much more pushback than the average white guy or average white going to yoga class. So tell me, how do you confront that in your community where people are like, dude, you sold out, what are you're a yoga guy, what? So tell me, and help me be a better light to the world too, because if you're doing it, I'm gonna be better. You can teach me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your words of encouragement. I really, really, truly appreciate it. And you're so right. Because there's that misconception or that stigma, or even we think that we think of yoga, we think of it's something for women. So therefore that masculine energy and that that men have, it kind of repel that particular practice, that mind-body practice, So like just really being that example, and talk about the benefits that I offer, and just talking about my experience, and that's the only thing I can do is just really just share that experience and hope for people to want to experience it for themselves. But I know when I was in prison and once I started doing it, and there was people in prison that I didn't think in a million years they'd be practicing yoga, that they were doing it. You know what I mean? Like guys with teardrops on their on their tattoo on their face doing yoga. And it's just different people from all walks of life doing these practices. So therefore, there is that resistance. So my thing is utilizing different platforms, different ways of social media, and talk about my experiences and what this the benefits of it and what this have done for me. And for me, my example is pretty much sound therapy, sound meditation, and how we use sound to really go within and help us to heal. And it just that stigma associated with these holistic practices, which I think I first need to work on demystifying as much as possible and getting that information out there and allowing it to be known that these things can help. And in my practice, in my work, I tend to focus not necessarily on the esoteric aspects of it, but even though I know the power is there, but I like to meet people where they're at, especially if they're new to different holistic practices. I talk about the benefits of sound healing or meditation or yoga, particularly with sound healing. It really helps to calm the mind, relax the body, and truly nourish our souls. And, the meditative sounds help to release chronic stress, muscle tensions, feeling of anxiety, depression, PTSD, sleep issues, and different other stress-related health conditions. So when I talk about it from that way, people are more open to deal with it because, we all experience stress. Some people experience chronic stress, and, stress is at the root of a lot of the chronic health conditions that we experience in our life. And when we're dealing with a significant amount of stress or feeling overwhelmed, as human beings, we have a tendency to find a sense of relief, try to find relief from that, whether it's pharmaceutical drugs or it's so-called illicit drugs, such as cocaine and heroin and alcohol. So therefore, understanding that we all deal with this type of emotional distress and pain, but using different mind-body practices in a healthy way can really help us to alleviate that instead of going down more destructive pathways. And really just kind of like sharing that and really, like you said, just being that example, being that face, because just putting it out there that there's Black men doing yoga, there's Black men doing meditation, there's Black men doing sound healing, and, yesterday we did a photo shoot with, 7 amazing African-American holistic health practitioners, whereas, we're on a marketing campaign to really put that face and voice up there, to really show that, this is not just for a certain group of people, it's for all of us. So therefore, just really just continue to shine that light, continue to speak the truth, and more people are really, and men of color are really going that route now, starting to open up and starting to see the benefits of how it's helping them in their life and dealing with the trauma that's in their bodies, the ancestral trauma that we experience in our life, and even for me and a lot of Black men, we didn't use that word trauma in our household. It just shit happens. It just it is what it is. So therefore, but understanding how a lot of the experiences that we've seen and went through, it was traumatic, and what does that mean, and how our body keeps score of all that. So the body movements, with yoga, with ecstatic dance, with moving in grace, whatever it is, the sound, the vibration from the crystal bowls and the gong, it helps to release a lot of that stuck energy, all that stagnant, uncomfortable emotion that we suppress, all that traumas in our bodies, and then release it. It needs to be released. That energy needs to be moved, and just creating that space for people to do that, and coming to the aha moment for themselves. It's like that saying, you could bring a horse, whatever to the water, but you can't make people drink. So therefore, it is really just inviting people, creating spaces for people to come, and when they're ready, when they get the aha moment, or when they want to see what it's all about, because they see the light that dwelling within you, and they're like, be curious about that light. I want some of that light as well too. And so they're open to try something new and try something different. That's just my experience, and that's what I continue to do, and just really put that face and voice
nice.
To it.
Thank you for being that guy.
Thank you.
Because we're gonna meet together on that path,
Yes.
Like both you and me as men,
yes.
Leading that way for other men. And so,
yes.
Thanks for being that guy.
Are you in Western Mass, or?
I am. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I'd love to connect with you.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
Yes.
I'd love to come practice yoga with you. Are there many yoga studios down in Hartford?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll come practice with you, bro.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm not seeing anyone else with a raised hand except my mommy.
Here we go.
Hello.
Hi, Kelvin.
Hello, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing really well, thank you. Because
That's
I've just
awesome.
listened to you. I've gotten so much encouragement out of what
thank you.
you said. I've reached levels of pretty deep despair, trying to figure out ways to help this culture help itself, I guess. And
yeah.
there's this natural resistance from anything other than middle-class white women to to go into yoga or those kinds of things, if you know what I'm talking about. Anything that's something you can spend money on, like a yoga outfit, that really helps push the idea. But, and I'm coming from that group. And years ago, I was involved with a group of ministers in Detroit, metropolitan Detroit. So there are about 30 ministers, pretty equally divided between white and black, and the whole idea of bringing us together. I was not the minister. I was the token attorney. And the idea was to try and figure out some way to get some improvement in how people are able to live, and in raising up the those who are less privileged than others, those who are easy prey, easy pickings, and stopping to take advantage of that situation, making it part of the economic system. And we've been talking monthly for a year, and finally one young black minister got up and said, I have to say this now. I've been wanting to say it for a very long time, but we black people, it has to come from us. And then I felt, well, okay, that really sounds good, except isn't there a role for other people as well? I mean, and yes, I think we need to become aware of where our own sense of injustice lies, and find our own definition of justice that works. But other than that, do you have any comments on what I just said?
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's important for men and women of color to have that space to kind of like have that dialogue or discussion, or just kind of like see where things lie, like far as like far as think about like the whole the holistic healing community and how we need to heal. I think it's important for us to have spaces where we can come together and share from our own perspective. But I also believe that it's important to have support from all people, but I think it's important that we have spaces where we can call our own and really, because just the whole process of how majority of Africans came to America is traumatizing, and demoralizing. A lot of us don't maybe even recognize the ancestor or the generational trauma that I experienced through the slave trade. So therefore, a lot of our culture, a lot of our language, a lot of that has been like stripped from us, So therefore, so we come to a land that it seems like it's full of oppression in a way, even disguised oppression. Whereas we feel like there's always a sense of control within for our community, or a voice outside of our community always trying to speak for us. So therefore, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of trauma just from that whole experience that may not even be recognized by a lot of people because it's subconscious when it's passed down from generation to generation. So having that space where we, as people of color, could come and have those heartfelt conversations where we can discuss that without no, lack of a better word, outside influence, but also how do we come together and if you're going to live in America and if we're going to live together and find a sense of harmony and balance, how do we have these conversations together as well too? So I do believe that a lot of it has to come from us, at least initially anyway, where we have these conversations and talk about some of the things that we experience more on a deeper level, maybe on a generational trauma level, and where do we need to go, where there's a lot of systems and oppression that's being caused within our communities, and how do we get our voice heard by us and for us. That's just my humble opinion.
So far, it seems to me that you're the best example that I've seen of a person who can make a huge amount of difference.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I mean that in all sincerity. Thank you for sharing your words. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yes, thank you.
Alyssa, you have a hand up?
I do. Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm just struck by how, as a white person, can I act as ally to support more people of color to become leaders, or people of color who are leaders to have the support to sustain that and inspire others. And one of the things that I'm excited about on this call is really seeing, Hillary, your role in working with Anne and bringing Kelvin in today. That's you modeling what I'm interested in seeing modeled right now. So I want to just say thank you, first of all, to you. And, Kelvin, I'm wondering if you have, as you became more of a leader in your community, if there was any moments that stood out to you that anyone that was not a person of color, so anyone that was white, found a way to support you that would be potentially, contributing to my learning in this moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alyssa, for being here and sharing. And, I work with different communities of color, but also, white communities as well too. And I feel this work is for everyone. And there have been people that's really been supporting me and really helping me to get these practices within their studios or within their places of employment, or the different agencies that are not people of color. So that's one way to that many people have been supporting me in my efforts. But I always share my truth of recovery, and just by me showing up and being there as a Black man, as a man of color, that's a statement within itself, So I feel supported by different people from different walks of life, and I'm so grateful for that. And how do we get these people to come together and have these different conversations? Is really perhaps maybe how do we create these spaces where we can have these conversations, about race relations and disparities and different barriers that people of color experience, in a broader context, because like I was saying before, there is the time and place where people can come together, communities of color, and kind of share more deeper and intimate ways of what direction that we need to go as a community. But also, let's open it up to everyone that really have a sincere intention of really helping the communities of color to thrive in life. And like I was saying earlier, it just feel like our voice needs to be heard by us, because of just how the whole process went down for us coming here to America, whereas I feel like we've been stripped and our voice has been taken away from us, and everything. So therefore, even subconsciously, I feel like, everything that we try to do, another culture try to take it from us, or want to control it, or want to um, just take it away from us and create their own way for what they think is best for us without us having our own voice. So therefore, that's why it's important for us to have that own voice. But I think we thrive in community. You know, and if we're all going to live here together, we got to figure out ways to come together and have these conversations and really meet on topics that touches our heart in different ways. So I just encourage you to continue being you. You know what I mean? And having that desire and that support to really take time to listen to a person and their experiences, like you did today, and see it from their lens with empathy and compassion, and asking, like you asked, how can I be of support as a Caucasian woman? How can I be of support? And you know, each person might have their own way that you could be of service and be supportive. But just taking that time out to listen with empathy and compassion is a great way to start.
Thank you so much, Kelvin.
You're very welcome.
So we just have a couple minutes left, and I know Rakia mentioned that she has a question too.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to ask, Rakia? Oh, she's on mute. Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go.
So first of all, I just want to say thanks for letting me move in and out as a mom. I'm working with my son here, so I've been a little on the DL. Anyways, but just really grateful for all the work everyone here is doing and for what the vulnerability and the tenderness you're bringing and the realness. And as a very mixed heritage person myself, though I can pass for white, you know, I have a lot of different sides of the story with African heritage, Native heritage, Jewish, etc. So, yeah, I really appreciate what you said just now about just continually checking in about like, how can I support you? How can I be of service? And continuing to listen, being a big piece. And I also think, like, you know, from my white ancestors, apologizing is really actually appropriate. Like going, and I wonder how you feel about that. Like if white people were to come to you and just say, I'm sorry for what my ancestors did to your ancestors, like, would that feel good? Would that feel patronizing? I know it's different for different people. Some people really appreciate it. It's very touching. The people are like, yo, I don't want to like have to reassure you it's okay. So that's kind of one part of the question. And the other is, I'm wondering if you found, I know it's very tender, but any sort of more indigenous spiritual practices from Africa, whether, you know, the Yoruba people, the Orishas, or different practices that have resonated for you, or, you know, felt, because I know as an indigenous person, learning my own language and things like that have been a huge part of my healing around similar things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here as well. And to answer your second question first, you know, having opportunity to kind of like dig deep into my ancestry, because, you know, just doing the slave trade it's, you know, it just got all discombobulated, you know. So therefore, just learning how, you know, my ancestry comes from Western Africa, from Mali, from Nigeria, from the Congo areas, and kind of like searching and doing deeper research and work in different tribes in that area, and really trying to figure where my people are from, where my culture from, and how they live in that land. Did they really connect to that? So I'm still on that spiritual journey of really connecting to my roots. You know, most my ancestry, when it came from Western Africa to the Caribbeans to the southern part of the southern states. You know, most of my ancestry are from South Carolina, Georgia. You know, I'm the first generation that lived here in up northeast in Connecticut. The majority of my family are from the southern states. Therefore, just doing that research and really learning more about my culture and my roots and my family and the Geechee culture down in South Carolina and my roots and how it dates back to the Western Africa coastline. And I'm still exploring that. I'm still trying to figure out the different tribes where my ancestry was coming from, and I love to connect to that spiritual side of my ancestors in that way. And to answer your first question, I guess it will all depend on how it's being delivered, how it would come to me. Just hearing you say that and how you said it, and just with your energy, I could see how that could be so healing. To hear someone say that with sincerity and authenticity, and really meaning the words, but I feel the sense patronizing, or just kind of like, I just have to feel the energy out of the individual who come to me and say that. But to me, like overall, I can see how powerfully healing that can be, just to hear that, just to that be a knowledge and my experiences and my ancestor experiences validated. I think that'll be very powerful. But I just will have to take it by person to person and see how I feel in my body with their words and intention behind it.
Apologies can be looking for reassurance, but they can also, like, if that's not the case, if it's like, and what can I do to show you and up for it that I mean it, then I feel like it can be genuine. I know, like, allies for me in different situations, often men in particular, like continually saying, what do you need right now? What can I do for you right now? How are you doing? Like, just continually asking has been really helpful.
Yeah, helpful. Yeah. I never experienced that, but that's just hearing you say that, and and just the way you said it, I believe it. I felt that in my heart. I felt like how that could be really, really healing. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everyone for your questions. They've been really, really great, and for your attention and presence and being here. And of course, Kelvin, for everything that you've brought and everything that you've offered to us, and for everything that you do in your life and for so many communities and so many people.
Thank you so much, Hillary. Same to you. Thank you for being a part of my life, and all the wisdom and how you hold space for me, and especially during my difficult times. And I really appreciate you and honor you very much. Thank you so much, Anne Marie, also as well too. It's a pleasure connecting with you up here and hearing your words of wisdom and how you shared earlier today. It's been a very powerful gathering for 2 hours, and how it's just so interesting how, when I first started, I was like, wow, 2 hours seemed like a long time, but how time really flew by, and it's just amazing. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your authenticity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Anne.
And I just want to say, for anyone who's in the area and you're interested in getting to know Kelvin more, you can look on his website and look him up. What is your website again?
I can be reached at www.kelvinbyoung.com. Okay.
And he does lots of sound healing in the area, and I invite you also to come. We're doing an event together next Sunday at this time, actually, 7 to 9 in Hartford at a place called Tainted. We're doing Grace Awakening to Recovery. And we're doing sound healing and circles, and a circle in the end for sharing. And we're going to be moving together, as well as just receiving the support of each other to move into what we want to create, realizing we're all in recovery from the past and our limiting beliefs, and from consumerism, racism, all of those things.
All of the isms.
We're moving.
All the isms.
We'll have some fun too. It'll be about fun. And I want to invite Anne to share briefly, and we'll just be a few more minutes.
So just in conclusion, I just have something that I found that I would like to read out to everybody, so we just could listen and just soak it in before we leave and go on our way. So it's by Mr. Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a Zen master and an activist, peace activist. So we talking about a little bit on compassion and what reconciliation really means. So he says that peace and compassion go hand in hand with understanding and non-discrimination. We choose one thing over another when we discriminate. With eyes of compassion, we can look at all of living reality at once. A compassionate person sees himself or herself in every being. With the ability to view reality from many viewpoints, we can overcome all viewpoints and act compassionately in each situation. This is the highest meaning of the word reconciliation. Our world does not lack people willing to throw themselves into action. He's saying that what we need are people who are capable of loving, of not taking sides, so that they can embrace the whole of reality as a mother hen embraces all her children with two fully spread wings. And that's Mr. Thich Nhat Hanh, coming from Mr. Thich Nhat Hanh. And, you know, I just would like everybody to soak that in and walk away knowing that we all in this together. It was created in the past by ancestors. You know, we had ancestors who meant well, but we also had ancestors who was delusional also. So what we want to do is to go within ourselves and heal those parts, because as was said earlier, when we heal not only for our ancestors in the past, but also for the future. So we are in the middle of both expansions. And it's important for us to keep that in mind and not feel that when we do it only for now or our present. We do it for both. And the healing goes right across the board, you know. So with love and peace, I thank you all for sharing, for coming, for being here. Mr. Kelvin Young, you're blessed. You brought so much wisdom and blessing. I have expanded with your talk. I have many questions still, but no time. So love everybody, and we'll stay in touch, you know.
Yes.
Again.
Yes, I love that, Anne. Thank you.
And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be back here with another topic. So all those who like this kind of conversation and feel called to sit with these kind of things, we are here. We're trying to hold space for it and to expand in different ways from different perspectives so that we could all grow. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I invite Kelvin in this last moment to do a little toning to help us thank our ancestors and thank our guides and benefactors and spirits of the land as well.
Thank you, Hillary.
As you go, take in the sound and receive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of
you.
your night.
You too. Thank you.